Hi everybody, thanks for coming. My name's Jeannie Barrett-Stanka. I'm an insurance agent. I have 3 licenses, P&C, Life and Health, Adjusting, and I'm working on broker right now, so I'll be 4. The other thing that I can do, I'm also a fine art appraiser. So I can take the report to the insurance company for the policy. An appraisal is going to be necessary almost anywhere when you hit a $20,000 individual item. IRS requires that. That's going to be important. I am a fine art appraiser with the ASA, which is American Society of Appraisers, and they have credentialing process. I'm also USPAP certified. That's USPAP. USPAP stands for United States Professional Appraisal Practices. That will stand up to IRS rigor. And that's a really important factor. When you try to get an appraiser, you want someone who's neutral. You want a USPAP certified appraiser. Okay. Another thing that I want to tell you about is my art background. I have an art degree. I'm an artist, actively painting. I'm not really in the mode where I would be painting and at the show producing, but I can walk the walk. I can do watercolor, I can stretch a canvas, and I'm also a fine art framer, so I can finish the piece at the end and put it on the wall. Now, a couple things I wanted to cover today. The legacy. There's different kinds of legacy. The cap and gown legacy, where someone's going to the same college that their parent went to. The legacy where you want to leave money. You know, that's where you see the money with there. And of course, here's the latest one in the movie Creed. They said, make your own legacy. All these are true for a collector. You're leaving the artwork, which could be a financial burden to someone if they're not prepared. You also want to make sure that it's covered with the insurance so that nothing happens to it before it's bequeathed to someone. And also for them to have their own legacy. You know, what if they don't like this artwork? What are they going to do with it? Those are all good questions for legacy purposes. I don't know if you've ever seen this book called Isms. It's talking about Impressionism, modernism, cubisms. They're the isms. Technically, we're insuring isms. Those are the things that we're after, things that a collector would have, different types of artwork. And then the other thing, what do you do with the artwork? How do you reduce the risk? In insurance, risk is taking care of the physical attributes. The framing is part of it. Without the framing to conserve the piece properly, it's always at risk. Here's one where we knew that it was at risk, which is this Monet, of course. Anyway, Monet had certain things where they were damaged, and the joke in the industry is, oh, it was water damage, the lily pond. But technically there was some spills that would seep through the walls. Again, that's a risk that needs to be managed. They need to be in the right area. I wanted to talk about what a collector is. And you can see we have this group of people. Collectors come in all sizes and shapes, and what kind of collections do they have? We have fine art here at the show, but we collect a huge array of things. There's a dinosaur bone collector. We insure him. Someone else with some various barbed wire from 2 centuries worth of barbed wire making. And of course, there's one that maybe you've heard this Roald Dahl book about skin. We insure tattoos that are off the body now and conserve. So those, I know, the morbid art world, of course, but those are some of the cocktail stories that make for a good discussion. And of course, in the gallery, you have the collector who's always looking for something. Yep, doesn't this look familiar? You've got the guy leaving the show with his piece. I have calls from galleries frequently. They said, I have someone here who says they won't leave with the piece till it's insured. Can you help me? Yes. We'll go ahead and start working on that, and as soon as it's finished, they'll be covered and they can leave with the piece. Some of the things we offer, if you're exhibiting, we can cover you for an exhibition. We can cover you if you're moving from one house to another. We can cover you if you're transporting it across country because you're going to the exhibit. Now, we're a little different than a moving company where someone calls me and says, I need it tomorrow because I'm moving. No, established customers, that's what we cover. This is an image of construction because the collectors we deal with are always building the collection. The collection can go up and down, it can change. Some of them just junk the whole collection and go to something different. So when that happens, as an insurance company, all you have to do is call your insurance company and tell them, hey, I got rid of all this and now I have $500,000 in this kind of art instead. And they'll adjust the policy. This is the regret that the collector has when they're not insured. You never want to go without the insurance, especially if these pieces, it is not necessarily a heartfelt feeling. I know you like the artwork, but if you paid money for it, you have financial interest, and that should be covered by insurance rather than waiting until after something happens. This was such a great article that came out through Tumblr, and then it was being listed on LinkedIn and Facebook. Art insurance, the protection you hope you never have to use. It's so true. But at the same time, this was written by a writer who was saying the insurance is important. You should have the insurance for all that so that you can get the coverage you need, and you need someone to advise you. That's what my job is as the agent. You need to have someone who can explain it to you. In our case, we have two thresholds. Anything under $5,000 is in a blanket policy, and it's a list that you maintain for yourself, and we take you at your word. That's part of the policy. You're signing that what you're telling us is true. We understand that you warrant the truth, and it's an agreement. Anything over $5,000, the insurance company I'm with would say, tell us some more about it. For example, if you have guns, a gun has a serial number and a description. It's so easy to look that up. You immediately know. Art's a little more subjective. And then if you move up to a $20,000 threshold, similar to IRS, you want to know that this piece is covered. You're probably headed towards an appraisal. We'll cover that in a minute. Here's some other issues with the risk management. Conservation. When you have a piece that's been damaged, it needs repair work. There's two types of people who do this. A conservator, and you see the Q-tip. This is famous. There's a group of conservators that are considered spitters. It's a really thirsty job. And they are removing dirt with human spit, which has just enough human acid to remove certain kinds of dirt. And of course, you have the ones that are more high-tech. They've got all the equipment, and they're repairing a frame. Framers also have their own conservation area. A conservator sets it back to what they believe the original status would have been, versus a restorer. I always compare a restorer to the white strips for bleaching your teeth. It's gleaming white. It's not how it originally started, but the restorers want it to look good. That's what they're after. These are things that very often the collectors will do for their items, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I get calls from insured saying, well, I'm going to have this clean, so I want it insured before it goes. You need to insure things. What if the one restorer I know had a paper piece of art in a bath, a chemical bath, and in front of her eyes, it dissipated. It was gone. The chemicals just dissolved the image and the paper. It was all gone. She's like, oh no, and she was videotaping it to catch that before it happened. I think you might want some insurance before it goes to the restorer. And I talk about risk. What are the risks with the art coverage? You can have risks such as putting it near the fan of the computer. The heat and the fan blowing behind the piece creates ripples and can cause damage. What else? Moisture, humidity. Things have to be kept in a stable environment that's conducive to the artwork. Also with the frames, if the frames are leaned against the wall and they're not properly mounted, you have things that start to warp. The wood will start to decay and change. And that can cause crackling in the piece as well as the frame. The other risk that you want to do, we insure things that are inside. We're not insuring artwork outside. That's a risk that's in another league, better insured elsewhere. And one thing you can do too, when you're talking about risk, you want to make sure that you have someone who can handle the artwork for you correctly. Personal property is an insurance term. This is an umbrella over all the things, I want you to think of it this way, that can fit in your car. Anything that, it's not the auto, it's not real estate, it fits in your car. Artwork falls into this category. So when you're talking to an insurance agent, very often they'll say, oh, that's your personal property. Now, I'm an art specialist, I'm a little offended by that. It's artwork. Here's some examples of personal property, just to give you an idea of what the insurance agents might be talking about. And then We'll go into some other things. We're talking about putting all your eggs in one basket. Can we cover all that at one time? Yes. We could do a $5 million collection without a problem, but that's multiple pieces. $250,000, $500,000, we could do those as well. The other thing we talk about is the security, and you can see the lock and key. You need things to be locked up. You want them to be covered in that way to eliminate the risk. And of course, the burglar. What's the best way to handle that? Always ask your agent to check off full burglary on an application so that you know you've gotten it. And the other thing that we ask for, do you have an alarm system? If you do, you can get a small discount for the coverage. And of course, I hear all the time they have a gated community. It's not quite the kind of security we're looking for because, okay, that looks like a pretty serious fence. Some of the gated communities are just the facade in the front versus what they might be doing inside the house with the alarm system that would call the police. And we have some insured who like to have their collection in a vault at the bank. When you have that, all we need to know is where it is, because we can cover it in multiple locations with different kinds of security. The who, when, and where. This is really important to the application. Who, your name. When. When are you getting the artwork? When's it being delivered? When are you moving? Things that you need to notify your insurance company about. And I always tell everyone, do it in writing. And where? Where are these things? Some risks, and none of the insurance companies want. For example, West Palm Beach, Florida. Hurricane force winds. The insurers aren't really looking for that. I saw a solution for this. Next to Larson Jewell, there is a service where they are reproducing the pieces, and the one has an impasto texture to it because it's a three-dimensional printer creating this. They said they're taking these to that area where you have hurricane force winds, and then the original is kept safely and insured under our auspices at another location. Here's something else for conservation's sake. I know we talk about this, but in terms of framing, the framers are the artist's best friend. You want the piece framed correctly. If you have paperwork, you need the right kind of matting that's going to absorb things. You don't want the old mats that are leaking the yellow acid into everything. I see a framer back there nodding your head. And the restorers, they have to be credentialed. I always tell everyone there's restorers and conservators who have their masters from special schools. Ask them what they're doing. Ask all the questions. Find out how they're handling things when they're there in front of you. And the insurance agent, they should be advising you. What can they cover? What can't they cover? Where? You know, we have hot spots that our underwriters will say, no, not doing that. Also, when you're talking to the agent, you don't want to pay for something you're not going to get back. If you're paying a premium and you have more in there than what you actually have, you're never going to see that return. You want the exact amount for those kind of things. This is talking about the installation. There's some phenomenal installers across the country. Your agent, if they're good with the arts, should be a good resource to help you find them. There's one near me in the Atlanta area that is like the MacGyver of the installation world. They come with a truck. Any minuscule particle, any combination of things, shims, they had everything stabilized, the ladders, they were there to do the job. And you want someone who's qualified. Also, we have pieces being put in there. Okay, the scream, I'm sure we all remember that one. The scream had its own issues, just a side note. It was stolen, then recovered, and when it was recovered, it had a big coffee cup ring on part of it. The scream, if you don't know, is painted on cardboard. So this was a bit of an issue. They did have good conservators who restored the piece. It was at the museum, and the coup there is M&M's had offered 1 million dark chocolate M&M's at Halloween time if anyone helped recover the screen. And because of this, whoever helped them find it said, well, that's a lot of candy, I think I'll pass. So they were giving these out at the museum, and afterwards, the museum was still in financial straits, and what happened is the museums decided, well, this is a good time to auction the piece off. So then again, you go back to the coverage. What kind of coverage do you need to send it to auction? And it was auctioned off, and the museum's doing fine, unfortunately without the piece. But that's a story of conservation and the insurance and the theft. They were not paid for this piece because it was recovered. And of course, installation, you want someone who can get up there. I don't know, we've had some iffy looking ladders around here. I was concerned about the ladders and installation. The list. In the art world, there's a different word for the list. It's a catalog raisonné. And what that means, specifics, photo, description, measurements. That's different. In our business, we're looking for a list. We want the insured to have the list for their record unless there's a loss. At that point, we would want to see the list. As arts go, there's longer lists with a catalog raisonné so that you have a great deal of details. It's reasonable though. That's the raisonné and the wish list. This is what I hear about from collectors all the time. As they're changing the collection, they're always saying, I have all these things I'm looking for. I want a wish list. I wanted this and I couldn't find it. I want that and I couldn't find it. Then they call me, I'm getting the list, I'm getting the list. What do I do, what do I do? Write the insurance company, tell them what you've acquired. Make sure that you're covered for those things. Of course, I have my own wish list here. Why insure? This is the biggest question a lot of insured don't understand. Even with your art, why do you insure? You purchased it. There's an investment that's been made. You have invested, so you have a risk at stake all the time in home. This is a financial that you can insure. And when you do that, they consider it transferring the risk to the insurance company. And that's where you want to go with the artwork. The being prepared part. This is the risk management on the part of the collector. The list, you have to have that ready. Also, you need to contact the insurance company. Make sure that you're always up to date with what the values should be on your program for the policy. And appraisals. I'm an ASA appraiser, that's American Society of Appraisers. This is important. You want a neutral source that will do this. When you think of an appraisal, compare it to, for starters, home appraisals. You get an appraisal, it'll give you comps or comparisons. Here's 3 houses that are similar to yours in the same area, that have the same features. Same thing with the art appraisals. The art appraiser should be saying, this is from the same period from this artist. This is from the same time, this is the same style, brush strokes are similar, therefore I find that it has these good qualities. They combine that with the 3 comps. Then they take it to another level and they have to give the opinion based on that theoretical theory with the period, the time, in addition to the comps. It's just a little bit notch above what you see with the homeowners. And another thing I always talk about, you want a USPAP certified appraiser. That stands for United States Professional Appraisal Practices. These are the big boys. These are the ones that can stand up to IRS rigor if anything ever goes crazy and you need that report to be used in court. And some of the groups that can do it, ASA, that's the one I belong to. This is AAA for American Appraisers Association. And they're very, very strong in the arts. They're here in Manhattan. They're based out of Manhattan. And another one is ISA. If anyone ever needs an appraisal, tell them to go to one of their websites. They have a Finder Appraiser link. And that does 2 things. It lets them choose. They are the consumer. They can call them, get a quote, talk about pricing. It also gets you out of the middle, but you've also been a good resource and you can refer them to one of these groups. The last thing that we need for a policy, because we've talked about the list, risk management. You get a premium quote based on the value that you've discussed with us. You get a premium quote based on the location and those risks. But the thing we really need are the signatures. Without a signature, you don't have a valid policy contract application. Very good. That's everything then.